Hello, and welcome to our next installment of our Bring Your Own Grown Up BYOG series. We're very excited to have you guys join us today and help us build native bee houses that you can then put out in your backyard and hopefully get some neighborhood bees to come visit your yard and be a part of your home. All right, so just to get started, what are native bees and what maybe makes them different from the normal bee we think about, which is the honeybee? So the honeybee is actually only from Europe. It came over with humans as they came from Europe to North America. So honeybees are not actually native, although they're also very common here and also very important pollinators. But we're very lucky to have here in North America lots and lots of native bee species. And these native bees are a little bit different from honeybees in a couple different ways. And the big difference is that they live alone. So they do not live in a big group in a hive like honeybees do. They live by themselves. So that's what they are, solitary. They live by themselves. But they're also gregarious, which is a big fancy word that basically means they don't mind being close to each other, but they don't live in a hive like a honeybee. You can kind of think of it as native bees are okay living in apartments, so they're okay living next to each other, but they're not in the same family, whereas honeybees live in one big family in one big home, that is their hive. So native bees live by themselves, they don't make honey, but they are important and really fantastic pollinators. They can actually pollinate more than a honeybee. And so they help us, all of the plants and trees and flowers that we see blooming around us during the summer and spring. Our native bees are a very important piece of making that happen. And so they, as they're eating the nectar of different plants, they pick up pollen and carry it from plant to plant and help keep those plants going from year to year. So native bees are very, very important to our ecosystem, to our plants, to our food that we grow, to our flowers in our yards. They are very important and integral piece of that. So depending on the species, some native bees nest in the ground. Some will try to nest in dead spots in trees or other plant deadfall. And in our cases, we can make houses that mimic these natural nest spots for these bees, and we can make houses that provide them with a good habitat to live and pollinate and be in our own backyards, which is what we'll learn today. So today we are making a native bee house. Specifically, we're making a house that is good for mason bees, which is a very common type of native bee that we have here in Montana and in the western US. So in particular today we are making a mason bee house. I've listed this supply list is probably everything you might need to make a fairly complex bee house. The one we are actually working on today as an example is actually much simpler. So for my one today, I'm actually only using a block of wood and our 3/8 inch extra long drill bit and the parchment paper and pencil. I've added in the other supplies here if depending on where you would like to put your house and depending on what the environment is, so what the weather, where the wind blows, kind of how it feels around your house, you might choose to either add on a roof that goes over the top of your block that kind of provides some protection. You might decide to add a back to your block that will form the house that will kind of protect on the back end. In our case, our example today is going on the side of a building that has a good overhang, so the building itself will provide the backing to the house and the roof. So we're only focusing on the block and drilling the holes that will make our little bee apartments. So the simple supply list will just be a block of wood, the 3/8 extra long drill bit. You want to make sure it's at least 6 inches long, so we just want to make sure it's a nice long drill bit, and the parchment paper and a pencil. If you'd like to add on a roof or a piece of a back to your house, so that would be 2 more pieces of wood and about 5 screws to screw it all together. Alrighty, so step one, we are going to start with our block of wood that's going to form the base of our house, the main part of our house. And with that 3/8 inch, that extra long drill bit, we want to drill down into our block of wood at least 6 inches. So this is a step that your grown-up is going to help you out with. And so your grown-up will take their drills with that extra long drill bit and drill down at least 6 inches. And as you can put as many holes as will fit comfortably within your block that you have. You want to make sure that each hole is at least 3/4 of an inch away from the next. So that is a good step to help your grown-up measure, be a little bit of math practice. But that's a really good step that you could help your grown-up is to measure the holes and make sure that they are 3/4 of an inch away from each other. All right, and so now we have our holes drilled into our block of wood, and now we are on to step 2, which is to make a little nest. Basically, it's a little liner for each of those holes that the bees will lay their eggs in, which will become larvae, and then eventually mason bees will plug each hole with wood and plants and other materials to basically seal it and keep their eggs and soon to be baby bees safe over the winter. And so we're going to help them by making a little kind of almost nesting tube that we can then help the bees take care of their larvae over the winter, which we will talk about after we've built this. And so this is where the parchment paper comes in. So what you will do is you will take your piece of parchment paper and you will measure out a 3-inch wide and 7-inch long rectangle of parchment paper for every single hole that you've drilled into your block. For this example, we just did 3. And so you'll measure each one out 3 by 7 inches, cut them out. So you can see in the second picture, we have 3 rectangles ready to go. And then you want to grab a pencil, either a regular pencil or a colored pencil works best. Sometimes pens or mechanical pencils can be a little too thick. So if you have just a straight regular pencil, that'll probably work the best for this. And you are going to carefully roll your parchment paper around your pencil to make it into a little tube that we will then insert into the bee houses, into the holes in our next step. All right, and we are on to our last step. So we have our parchment paper rolled around a pencil, and now we are going to carefully start pushing that into your holes that you have drilled. So you're going to go from the back, so your holes when you drill them should go all the way through the block of wood, that full 6 inches. And you are going to carefully put that pencil with the parchment paper carefully through the back, and you're going to push it till it's right at the front of the hole. And once it's in, you're going to carefully keep a hold of the end of that pencil. You're going to carefully pull just the pencil out so you leave the parchment paper. As you can see on the very far photo at the bottom, when you're done, that parchment paper should be perfectly flush, so it should be perfectly in line with the front of the hole on the front of your block there. And then you will repeat this step for as many holes as you drilled in your house. And then when this is done, on the back side you can curl the ends up, so you kind of just fold them upwards. And if you are adding on a roof or a back, this is when you would do it. Once all the tubes are in, you can put a back on or a roof on if you choose to do so. This really, really fun part of building your bee house is now you have a ongoing project that you can participate as a family to help take care of your own native bees that will hopefully come into your home, into your yard, and kind of be a part of your home. And so there's a little bit of yearly maintenance that comes with keeping a nice clean bee house. By doing this, you help lower the chance of them getting any disease, of getting sick. It also helps to clean the nest. So if you can imagine, probably have to clean your room every once in a while. You wouldn't just live in your room all year long and never clean it. Same thing for our bees. So if you think of each of the holes that we drilled as a little room, you can help them in the winter and spring by kind of cleaning out their room and giving it time to reset, and that helps reduce pests and helps reduce disease and really keeps our backyard bees healthy. And so what you can do is each fall you will carefully remove the parchment paper tube. So unscrew it from our place where we had it affixed, and then carefully pull the parchment tubes back. That's why we left those long ends when we built them. And these can actually overwinter in your garage or another sheltered building. They don't need to be warm, just kind of sheltered and out of the really harsh elements. So you can place your cocoons in a cardboard box and let them overwinter in your garage or another, maybe a shed, somewhere sheltered. And then in the springtime, you can set your box back outside, make sure there are some holes or cracks in the box. And as the bees leave their cocoons and fly out to live their summer lives, they can get out through those holes and those cracks, and they have a successful generation of bees. And they should all be out of your box by summertime, which is when you can put that away. Also in the spring, so you can think of your bee house has sat empty over the winter, kind of got a chance to air out, clean out. You can refill your bee house with new parchment paper tubes. So putting in new paper tubes every year really helps to keep the house clean and the bees inside healthy. And beyond that, you can do some other projects to make your yard a bee-friendly place for the bees that hopefully will come to live in your house. And there's lots of different ways to do that. Check out our resources, and there's lots of books and websites that have more information on how you can do this. One idea, you can set out a water source. That could be a really shallow dish with water. If you put pebbles in the bottom, it gives them somewhere to stand while they catch a drink. You can also plant native plants and flowers and maybe start a garden. So there's lots of plants and pollen that the bees can eat through the summer, and they'll have enough and be really happy in your yard. And especially since our house is for mason bees, and you remember that mason bees lay their eggs in our little tubes that we've created in our bee house. And they will plug that with mud and leaves and kind of other material. And so it can really help the mason bees if you leave even a little patch in your yard that is just kind of open, even if you want to dampen it a while and make it a little muddy. That provides them with the mud they need to close up their houses when they're done laying their eggs. So that can be another really great way to help the mason bees by just having a teeny patch of open dirt in your yard. So there are a lot of great resources if you want to do some more research and learn more about your bee house and what else you can do to attract native bees and other native pollinators to your home and your backyard. On this page, you'll find some books and ebooks listed. All of the books we have at the library, the ebook listed is a free download, so you can go directly to the Sustainable Agricultural Research and Education site and download their ebook. There's also a couple of websites you can check out, and we've listed the links to those as well that all have very good information on how to make the best bee house you can, and also how to improve your backyard habitat to be really friendly for the bees and for the other pollinators.